Hello, everyone. I'm Sheldon Baker, your host for Healthy Bytes, brought to you by Innovision Health Media. My guest today is Ross Pelton, who's known as the natural pharmacist and is currently the Director of Science and Education for Essential Formulas. He is also a clinical nutritionist, health educator, and author of 13 books. In October 1999, Ross was named one of the top 50 most influential pharmacists in America by American Druggist magazine for his work in natural medicine. Ross's newest book is titled Rapamycin-mTOR Autophagy and Treating mTOR Syndrome. Ross, thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Sheldon. It's really nice to be with you. I appreciate it.
Sure. Let's talk about the microbiome and what is the gut microbiome and why is it important?
Thanks for asking that question. This is a great topic and one of my great passions in life. The gut microbiome is the central regulator of health for the whole human body. And you've got about 100 trillion bacteria in your gut microbiome. And what many people don't understand is that the primary job of the beneficial bacteria in your gut microbiome is to digest and ferment the food you eat and ultimately produce compounds that we call postbiotic metabolites. And it turns out these postbiotic metabolites are the critical health regulators for much of your body. Many people mistakenly think it's your beneficial bacteria that regulate your health. They indirectly regulate your health, but the primary force are these postbiotic metabolites that your beneficial bacteria are supposed to be creating. And they regulate the gut microbiome ecosystem, and many of these postbiotic metabolites get absorbed into your systemic circulation, where they influence all your other organ systems, especially the brain and the immune system. And one of the great health challenges and great health problems these days, Sheldon, is most people are not effectively making these postbiotic metabolites because they have a dysregulated gut microbiome, what we call dysbiosis, which really refers to bacterial imbalance in the gut microbiome. A healthy gut microbiome should be about 85 to 90% beneficial bacteria and only 10 to 15% potentially bad bacteria. And I say potentially because everybody's gut microbiome harbors some of these bacteria that could be bad, but when they only exist in small numbers, they don't cause problems. But when things get out of balance and you have too many bad bacteria and not enough good bacteria, you have this condition known as dysbiosis. That's when many health problems develop. And turns out most people in America are suffering from this for a variety of reasons. Too many antibiotic prescriptions taken, which kill off your good bacteria as well as your bad bacteria. One of the biggest sins in America are bad diets, relying on processed foods and high sugar foods and so forth, which feeds the bad bacteria and creates bacterial imbalance. And the problem with this bacterial imbalance is that the bad bacteria are bad because when they secrete substances, they're highly inflammatory and highly harmful to the gut microbiome ecosystem. They damage the gut lining and allow harmful things to be absorbed into your system. And then you have system-wide inflammation. And we now have the term inflammaging, which links inflammation and the aging process. And the gut is the primary source of inflammation in the body. When you don't have a predominant beneficial bacteria population in your gut microbiome, you have increased inflammation, and increased inflammation results in tissue damage and organ damage, and it accelerates biological aging. So I'm a big proponent of getting people to understand the importance of these postbiotic metabolites. And in June of 2019, I wrote an article that was published in a medical journal titled Postbiotic Metabolites, the New Frontier in Microbiome Science. And I draw all of the links between bad diet, antibiotics, gut dysbiosis, this microbial bacterial imbalance in the gut, and accelerated biological aging. And now I'd like to introduce what I think is a game-changing product titled Dr. O'Hara's Probiotics. Dr. O'Hara's Probiotics is different than every other probiotic in the market because it's made in a multi-year fermentation process, and the fermentation production process results in over 500 of these postbiotic metabolites being created. So when they encapsulate Dr. O'Hara's, you're getting 500 of these postbiotic metabolites in every dose. And they have anti-inflammatory activity, and they help to heal the gut lining, and some of them are antioxidants, and many of them are classified as antimicrobial metabolites. They're natural antibiotics that are produced by your beneficial bacteria that fight pathogens and sometimes directly kill them. So it's really a critical part of your immune system. And so by taking Dr. O'Hara's, you're directly delivering these postbiotic metabolites. And many people, Sheldon, think that if you have dysbiosis and microbial imbalance in your gut microbiome, they think they can take high-dose probiotics orally to correct this problem. And that's a serious misunderstanding, because there's a couple of reasons why oral probiotics are not generally very effective. And one reason is that the acid in your stomach is from 10,000 to 100,000 times stronger acid than the acidity in the small intestine and the colon. Gastric acid is the front line of your immune system. It's designed to kill bacteria and other harmful things that enter through your mouth. And so most probiotics taken orally are going to be decimated when they encounter stomach acid. And then the small intestinal ecosystem or environment is also a pretty unfavorable place for beneficial bacteria if they make it that far, because we secrete bile acids and pancreatic enzymes for food digestion, and they'll destroy the cell membrane of bacteria if they make it that far. And the third reason oral probiotics are not very effective: if bacteria taken orally were to reach the colon, which is the site of the microbiome, it's like a food desert. People are not consuming the foods that support a healthy gut microbiome. And it's basically plant-based foods. Fruits and vegetables supply dietary fibers and polyphenols, which are the two food groups that your beneficial bacteria require. And there's multiple studies, Sheldon, that show that from 85 to 90% of American children and adults are not consuming adequate amounts of fruits and vegetables, which are the foods that support a healthy gut microbiome. But
at the end of the day, Ross, you're only as healthy as your gut.
You're absolutely right. In fact, there's a book that was written called "The Gut is the Second Brain," and it really is. It's really controlling and regulating much of the health activity that goes on in the body. We talked about the gut-brain axis, and now we know there's the gut-heart axis, and the gut-skin axis, and the gut-liver axis, the gut-kidney axis. The gut is regulating all of these different organ systems through these postbiotic metabolites, but most people are not adequately producing them, hence health problems are rampant. When I was in high school back in the 1950s, there wasn't an epidemic of heart disease and cancer and diabetes and autism, and all of these things now are reaching epidemic proportions. So I think the health of humanity is on a decline, and I think that this gut microbiome postbiotic metabolite issue is one of the critical things that can help people make some improvements.
Can you just briefly review, too, you mentioned the postbiotic metabolites paper that you wrote. Can you just briefly talk a little bit more about that and why postbiotic metabolites are so important?
Sure. Well, when you have gut imbalance, there's microbial imbalance in the gut microbiome, the bad bacteria are creating inflammation in the gut. And inflammation in the gut breaks down the tight junctions in your gut barrier lining and allows harmful things to leak into systemic circulation. And then you have system-wide chronic inflammation in the body, and that accelerates biological aging. It causes tissue damage, organ damage over time, and it's due to inflammation in the gut and breaking down the gut lining, which allows harmful things to leak into systemic circulation. So that's kind of the step-by-step process that allows this gut problem to create system-wide health problems.
I think you really alluded to the consequences of having an unbalanced or dysfunctional gut microbiome. Care to discuss that a little bit more?
Sure. So the gut microbiome is supposed to be, in fact, what we're understanding from the emergent science, Sheldon, is that the primary job of your beneficial bacteria is to produce these postbiotic metabolites. And as I mentioned, most people are not adequately producing these, so they have resulting health problems.
Japanese manufactured products seem to carry a very high recognition of manufactured products, especially here in the U.S. Why do you think that is?
Well, I can only speak to the probiotic category. I don't know about all the other products that are produced in the Japanese scientific community, but Japanese are famous for fermentation. And this Dr. Ohira created this multi-year fermentation process, and it took Dr. Ohira about 10 years to develop this process. Ohira was originally a landscape architect. He had a global career, very highly successful career as a landscape architect. And through a sequence of events, he got very sick, and somebody gave him a product. He was actually traveling in Malaysia. One of the doctors there gave him a product that cured his nausea and vomiting very quickly. And so this intrigued him, and he learned that this product that a shaman in Malaysia had given him was made from locally fermented Malaysian fruits and vegetables. So that's how Ohira got onto this concept of fermentation. And he took samples of this Malaysian product back to Japan to study them, and after a while he got frustrated. He didn't have the scientific background to really study it the way he wanted to. So at age 49, with a globally successful career as a landscape architect, Ohira walks away from that career, enrolls in the university, gets a degree in microbiology, and then it takes him 10 years to experiment with what types of foods, what strains of bacteria work best, what's the length of time best for fermentation, which ultimately now is Dr. Ohira's probiotics.
I think our viewers can get a free copy of your booklet. How do they do that?
We have a little booklet that I wrote called Dr. Ohira's Probiotics and Postbiotic Metabolites. They can go to my website, naturalpharmacist.net/Ohira book, and that's OHHIRABOOK. And they can get a free copy of this booklet that explains the whole fermentation process for the production of Dr. Ohira's probiotics.
Ross Pelton, thank you for joining me today on Healthy Bites.
Thank you, Sheldon. I appreciate the opportunity.
And thanks to all of you for watching Healthy Bites.